بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين أما بعد فقد قال عز وجل بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم تبت يدا أبي لهب وتب ما أغنى عنه ماله وما كسب سيصلى نارا ذات لهب وامرأته حمالة الحطب في جيدها حبل من مسد صدق الله العظيم. Following on from 2 weeks ago, just to mention, obviously 2 weeks ago we done Surah Nasr, and there we covered the victory which the Prophet ﷺ was given in Fath Makkah. And in Surah Nasr, إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحُ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala generally in this Fath, He talks about the conquest of Makkah and the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after all of the suffering which the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba radiallahu anhu went through, here in Surah Nasr they got that victory. Now in this surah, this follows on from the previous two surahs. So we had Surah Kafirun, where the Prophet ﷺ finishes Surah Kafirun by saying Lakum dinukum waliyadin, that for you is your religion and for me is my religion. Essentially at the end of this surah there was a very distinct separation between the Prophet ﷺ and the Kafirin and the non-Muslims, and this separation became very distinct, and that's where the Prophet ﷺ was told to separate himself, so that distinction happened. Then afterwards in Surah Nasr we saw the consequences. So the Prophet ﷺ said Lakum dinukum waliya din, for you is your religion and for me is my religion. Now we can interpret that as for you is the consequences of your religion and for me will be the consequences of my religion. And then we see in Surah Nasr where the Prophet ﷺ, he is given the consequences of his religion. He's given the victory in this world and in the hereafter. We see the success for the Prophet ﷺ. Now to follow on from that, this surah now comes and this talks about how the Prophet ﷺ, he was given success, and then the other camp. So we had two camps in Surah Kafirun. We had the Kafirin and we had the Muslims. So lakum dinu, for you, your religion, and me, my religion. So my religion, the consequences were in Surah Nasr. He had victory. And in this surah, in Surah Lahab, we see how the punishment is given to the Kafirin, even in this world and in the hereafter. And this is a specific group of Kafirin which are referred to. So this is one way which is linked to the surahs before. Another way is that in Surah Nasr we saw a big help from the non-Muslims. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gave a very big help to the Muslims, and He helped them in a massive way, in a very big way. He gave them the conquest of Makkah. Here we see a smaller help. We see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He helps the Muslims, but not in as big a way. It's a help before Islam, before the hijrah of Islam. We saw that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He helped the Muslims in many small ways as well. And this also, it has very big effects, but it wasn't as distinct and as big as Surah Nasr. So we see how this links with the surah before. And generally the surah, what it deals with one of the greatest enemies of Islam, Abu Lahab, as we know him. And it deals with him, and also it deals with his wife, and both of them were very severe enemies of Islam, and this surah deals with them and the problems which they gave the Prophet ﷺ. And also there's many reasons for which this surah was revealed. Many different reasons are given, and we'll go through them inshallah as we get onto the surah. And this is the general overview, but as we come in we see that this surah, different things are mentioned of this surah. And to come on to the first verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says Tabbat yada Abi Lahabin wa tab. Tabba, destroyed, or to be given, to be destroyed, or something which had a lot of pride or had a lot of status. So as we know about Abu Lahab specifically and his wife, they were almost the celebrity couple in Makkah. So they were very high up. They had a very high ranking. They were very wealthy, they were very popular, and also both of them, Abu Lahab was known to be very handsome and his wife was known to be very good looking as well. So this is how they were looked upon by society, very prestigious. So then tabbat means that when a person has a very high status and then he loses all of it in one go. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to. Tabbat yada, yada literally means hands. So to translate literally, may both of the hands of Abu Lahab, essentially most scholars translate that as his whole life. His hands refer to his whole body, his whole life. May it all be destroyed. And then this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains. And this generally most scholars translate it as a dua. This is a, may this happen. This is a curse from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that may this person be destroyed. The reasons that this was revealed, there are many different reasons why this specific verse was revealed, and we get up to 5, 6, up to 10 different reasons. The most famous one, which we all probably know, is from the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The first time the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he stopped being public. Many a time the distinction which happens, we know that for 3 years the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he called secretly, and he didn't go openly calling everyone. But then we know there was a distinction, and a lot of people make that defining point, this incident of Mount Safa, where the Prophet ﷺ, he went on top of Mount Safa and he called everyone openly towards Islam. Many people they refer to this as the defining point between the secret call and the open call. So when the Prophet ﷺ, he went up onto the mountain, and then he addressed the Quraysh, and he said that if I told you that behind this mountain there's a big army which is about to attack you, then what would your response be? They said that we will believe you to be truthful. We've only known truth from you. So when the Prophet ﷺ said this to them, then he said that in reality the reason I've called you is because now today I have to warn you about something which is a lot more harmful than an army coming from behind the mountain. So remember, the Prophet, this call of going on top of Mount Safa and shouting Ya Sabaha, it's like declaring a state of emergency. Something very big is happening. So the Prophet ﷺ went to the top of the mountain and he announced Ya Sabaha. And when that happened, everybody comes. All of the leaders come, all of the people of importance come. And it's so important that if a person himself can't come, he'll send his Rasul, he'll send somebody on his behalf. So this is how important that event was. Now everybody comes, Abu Lahab himself comes as well, and many other people. This is where Ali radiallahu anh, he is known to convert to Islam. And different things, important things happened here. And what happened is when Abu Lahab came here and he saw that the Prophet ﷺ called everyone, he saw him that he's saying that, what if there's an army behind me, would you believe me? They all said yes. He said, I'm going to warn you of something more important. So now usually this is only done in an emergency situation. It's not just done, you don't just call everybody for no reason. So now this is how important the Prophet ﷺ had the akhirah. He said that I'm going to warn you about something which is very important and is going to happen. If you do not stop from worshipping idols and doing all of these things, then a very grave punishment awaits you. فَإِنِّي نَذِيرٌ لَكُمْ بَيْنَ يَدَيْ عَذَابٍ شَدِيدٍ. I'm warning you of a very painful punishment which is coming. So then فَقَالَ Abu Lahab Tabban lak ama jama'tana illa lihada. Then Abu Lahab said that Tabban lak, this is the word he used, Tabban lak. Did you call us just for this? Is this the only reason you called us? What's the point? You called us all this way just for this reason. So this is something which Abu Lahab said. And then as a result of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he revealed Tabbat yada abi lahabin wa tab. And this is something which is revealed, and this is the main reason which is given. Obviously we see many lessons for ourselves, and the key lesson we take for ourselves is the Prophet ﷺ, he's comparing the success of this world and the success of the hereafter in the same place, in the same way. So now the way that they care about themselves, so if the army comes from behind the mountain, they fear destruction in this world, and they fear the death of themselves and their wives being widowed and the children being orphaned. They fear that their wealth will be looted. They have the fear of materialistic loss. Now the Prophet ﷺ, he takes that same fear and he tries to impose this same fear on the hereafter. Just like that would be a state of emergency. If there's an army behind that mountain, this is a state of emergency. The Prophet ﷺ takes that very same fear that they would have had and says, that same fear that you have for this, take this same fear for the akhirah. The same fear, take it for the adabun shadid. This is what I'm trying to warn you about. And for the Prophet ﷺ, that was a real emergency. This is his yaqeen that he had. And this is how the Sahaba radiallahu anhum understood this. And their yaqeen went to that level. And that's what allowed them to spread Islam the way that they did and make the sacrifices for Islam the way that they did. So this is the key thing we learn, that even the thing that we take away as normal Muslims living is that we need to try and give this same importance to religion as well. The way that there is afterlife and the way that we'll be taken to task. So we have to keep that in mind at all times. This is the key thing that we learn. And in certain narrations what we also find is that there's a narration where the wife of Abu Lahab, she came and also abused the Prophet ﷺ. And this, as a result of that, this whole surah was revealed. This is what certain scholars say. So the wife of Abu Lahab, she came and she was looking for the Prophet ﷺ. And certain scholars, in fact, they say that this was actually revealed after. So when Tabbat Yada was revealed, then when the wife of Abu Lahab heard that she's been cursed by Allah on the tongue of the Prophet ﷺ, she came and looking for the Prophet ﷺ. She came out hunting. And when she came out, she came to see where the Prophet ﷺ was, and she knew that the Prophet ﷺ was sitting in the masjid next to the Kaaba, and with him was Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. And in her hand she had a bunch of stones, and she was going to throw these at the Prophet ﷺ. And however, what happened is, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu had already been told by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she's going to come, she's not going to be able to see me. And when she came, she asked Abu Bakr, where is your friend? Aina sahibuk? Where is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she was blind from him, even though he was sitting next to her, so he couldn't see. And this was the result of this. And she couldn't see him, and then what she done is she said loads of things, and then she ended up going away. One more thing that we learn from here is something very important. She said lots of things. She cursed the Prophet ﷺ in many ways, and she said lots of things to the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ, very often he would give responses. So one thing which she had is she was a poet. So the way she would refer to the Prophet ﷺ is mudhammama. This poem is actually said here that mudhammaman asayna wa amrahu abayna wa dinahu qalayna. That the religion of the Prophet ﷺ has made us tired. We don't want to have anything to do with his religion. Amrahu, his whole situation, we refuse him. We completely reject the fact that he receives revelation. And mudhammaman, she referred to, now this rhymes with Muhammad. So Muhammad, instead of referring to Muhammad as Muhammad, coming from hamd, which we done at the beginning of Surah Fatiha, meaning praise and thanks, somebody who is praised, she refers to him as mudhammam, somebody who's the opposite of praise, somebody who's cursed. The Prophet ﷺ, when she said these couplets, he didn't get angry and start responding and start refuting and start, saying, I need to, make a video about this and put it on YouTube and tell everybody that, this is wrong. The way he went about it, he said, mudhammaman abayna, she's cursed. This whole speech, this whole poem she's made, it's about somebody called Mudhammam. My name is Muhammad. So therefore this is not something to do with me. And also to the extent scholars say that these du'as which they would make, the kafirin, they would very often refer to the Prophet ﷺ as mudhammam. And then here the Prophet ﷺ specifically ignores what she says, and he uses the excuse of the fact that she doesn't refer to him with his proper name. Now it's not a real argument, it's not a real refutation, but the point is that when somebody comes and starts barking, we don't have to respond. This is the key thing we learn. So now the wife of Abu Lahab comes and says stupid things. Doesn't make much sense. It's not necessary always to respond. This is something very, very important. That very often we'll find people who may say things which are wrong, but very often if somebody responds, it doesn't always make it better. Unfortunately, nowadays we have a society which is even worse than this. Because if somebody goes online and they're on Facebook and somebody puts a comment inside, it stays there forever. In this society, somebody would say it and that's it, done. But nowadays it stays forever, the comment stays forever, and this is something which we have to try and avoid as much as we can. But the point that if somebody comes to us and says something evil, we have to try and learn to just ignore it, pass it off and leave it on the side. People will always come and say things, but the Prophet ﷺ, just the way he passed it off, as if it doesn't matter, doesn't mean anything to him. He didn't take it personally. He just said, somebody's barking, you leave it. If a dog is barking, a person doesn't go and start barking as well. It's not something which is beneficial. This is the key lesson which we all take, and we all try and implement that, and it will benefit us, inshallah. Another reason this was revealed is once that Abu Lahab, he said to the Prophet ﷺ that what is it that I will get? That mali alayhim fadl. He asked the Prophet ﷺ, what is it that I will get? What is it that I will get if I become a Muslim? And the Prophet ﷺ says that you will become the same as everyone else. You will become a Muslim and you will be the same, equality as Islam promotes. And then he said, Tabban li hadha ad-din, that such a deen which makes someone like me equal to everyone else. And then because of this, he then cursed the Prophet ﷺ. And then the hadith says that Tabbat yada Abi Lahabin wa tab was revealed as a result of this. And there's many different things. We can't really go through all of them, but many different reasons why this is narrated. And once another narration, just to briefly come, is that people would come from outside to learn about Islam. And when Abu Lahab would find he's come to see the Prophet ﷺ, he'd go to them and he'd describe the deen as something which is something which is cursed. And he would go up to them and say these kind of things. And he would say that, the deen is something which is cursed. And that's what he would say to them. And many a time, another narration is that he came to the Prophet ﷺ and he came to throw a stone at him, and to throw a big rock at him. And then this verse was revealed. Different reasons come. And generally, tabbat, what it means is to khasira, to be destroyed. To have things and for all of that to be lost. And different scholars just say it in different ways. But to have something and then to lose everything that you had, this is what tabbat generally means. Yada, the reason yada is referred to, another narration says the reason yada comes is because another narration where the Prophet ﷺ would go around calling towards Allah. he would say, قولوا لا إله إلا الله تفلحوا. He would call everybody, come to Islam. And then Abu Lahab would follow him around, despite, remember, he's his uncle. Now he's very, just like Hamza radiallahu anh is the uncle of the Prophet. Abu Talib was the uncle of the Prophet. Hamza was another of their brothers. Abu Lahab was another uncle of these. So now Abu Lahab would then follow him around and say, La tasma, don't listen to this person, hada majnoon, he's gone crazy, and he would be throwing stones at his ankles. And to some extent, to the extent that his ankles would become, start bleeding, his ankles start bleeding because of the stones. And then his slippers would become full of blood. And this is the reason why we see that the yada is mentioned, because he would use his hands to throw the stones. And most scholars say that yada just refers to his whole body. His whole thing is now cursed. And this is one of the key things which we learn. And this is what Abu Lahab used to do. And this is one of the reasons why there's so many things. Even in Surah Quraysh, we learned that the reason, in Surah Kawthar, sorry, Inna a'tainaka al-Kawthar, the whole reason behind that surah being revealed was because when the son of the Prophet ﷺ passed away, Abu Lahab was the one who was going around and celebrating. So that's why Kawthar came. And it's almost the opposite, this surah. This surah is showing the punishment of Allah, and Surah Kawthar was showing the abundant good of Allah, the abundant blessings of Allah, the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He blessed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is very opposite. This is showing how Allah will punish and give the opposite of what He gave. So the enemy of Allah will receive this, and the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he will receive Al-Kawthar and all of the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's almost a very contrast to Surah Kawthar we see that this surah is. And these are the different blessings that we take from this surah. And also one discussion which all of the Mufassirin bring up is that why is Abu Lahab called Abu Lahab? And this something is mentioned in the handouts as well, that why does Allah bring the name of Abu Lahab in the Quran? And one thing we learn is that the real name of Abu Lahab was not Abu Lahab. This is not something which he was called. His actual name was Abdul Uzza. And as we know, there were two big idols, Lat and Uzza. So Abdul Uzza, the slave of one of the idols in the Kaaba. So now Allah didn't want to bring in Allah is not going to bring in the Quran and refer to a human being as actually being a slave of an idol, because this is something which is not worthy of being in the Quran. And also it's not very true either for somebody to be a slave of an idol. So that's why Allah refers to him with the nickname. And all of these reasons are here. The first reason is done. And Abu Lahab is more famous. He was better known as Abu Lahab. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala referred to him as Abu Lahab. Also, the third point is that a real name is generally more respectful. Now, the fourth reason is the main reason. That Abu Lahab, the reason he was called Abu Lahab was by the mushrikeen, because he had a very beautiful and bright face, and he was very highly respected. Him and his wife were the celebrity couple of Makkah. So now these are the two reasons. Now, because they're respected by the Quraysh and held in high esteem, Abu Lahab is something which he likes. He likes to be called Abu Lahab. But now Allah uses Abu Lahab in this surah, and we know that Lahab later on is referred to as a fire of Jahannam. Lahab refers to the fire of Jahannam. So now by using the same word and referring to him with the same name that the society knows him as, now Allah, by using it here, He's managed to use the same name, and by using the same name, instead of giving him respect by means of the name, the Quraysh gave him respect. The Quraysh said, Lahab, shiny face, very beautiful person. Lahab means somebody with respect. Now Allah uses the same name but managed to give him the person of Jahannam. He attributes him to being in Jahannam because of Lahab. And Lahab is a flame in Jahannam. And that's how Allah describes, and it rhymes, the whole surah rhymes because of that. And then in Jahannam, there's a flame which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to here, which is what he will end up entering. So this is how we understand. And then at the end we have watab at the end. Now there's different ways of translating this. So if you remember, the way we translated was dua. Tabbat yada abi lahabin wa tab, may he be cursed. Another way of translating is, instead of making it a dua, they make it as a statement of fact, that the hands of Abu Lahab have been cursed, using the past tense. Now as we know, past tense in Arabic, it can be used for future when something is definitely going to happen. Now this obviously has a long discussion of taqdeer essentially. And in order to understand this, the Mufassirin, a lot of them discuss this. And what they say here is that here, in reality, what's happening is we have a whole historical discussion, to the extent that in the Mufassirin, if you look in the history books which have been written by Muslims, Tariq al-Baghdadi, Bidaya wa Nihaya, and all of the history books, a lot of them, they start history not from Adam alayhi salam, not from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not from Adam alayhi salam, from the beginning of time, from when Allah was right at the beginning, before anything was created, before the Quran was created and before the world was created. At that time, that's when history books start, and we look at certain history books, we'll find this. So you can look at all of these things. So now tabbat yada, there's a certain narration which indicates that tabbat yada, it actually indicates on the tabbat yada was written right at the beginning of time, before anything was created. So Allah knew this right from the beginning. And this is something which obviously gives us a lot of information, and we understand that how, if Allah's already written something, then how can we change it? And then we learn that just because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what we're going to do, it does not mean that we do not have the power to do the right thing. It does not mean we don't have ikhtiyar. Allah's knowledge doesn't stop us from doing the right thing. This is something very important that we learn as well. And this is a very long debate which we don't want to go into too much detail. But even the Mufassirin, they quote the Tariq of other scholars. They quote history books here in the Tafseer of this ayah. They quote history books. And then there's a very, very famous hadith which is quoted by most of the Muhaddithin, where Musa alayhi salam has a debate with Adam alayhi salam. And Musa says to Adam alayhi salam that, why did you do the mistake? You kicked us all out of Jannah. If you didn't make the mistake, if you didn't eat the apple, we would all be living in Jannah happily ever after. And then the end of the hadith shows that Adam alayhi salam wins the debate. And how he wins the debate is he then asks Musa alayhi salam that, is it not written in the Torah that I was going to do that? And he asks Musa alayhi salam. Musa alayhi salam says yes. So he goes, how can you accuse me of doing something wrong when it was already written? And another place, another way that Adam alayhi salam wins this argument is in another hadith which is narrated from Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, that Adam alayhi salam then said to Musa that, "Bikam wajadta Allah kataba at-Tawrata qabla an yakhluquni." How many years before my creation was the Tawrat compiled? How many years before Allah created me did He write the Tawrat? And then Musa alayhi salam replies and says 200 years. So then now Adam alayhi salam asked Musa alayhi salam that, do you not find in the Tawrat wa asa Adamu rabbahu faghawa, that even in the Tawrat this whole story is mentioned. So all of this was written down. And this gives us the whole, again, very important message of Islam, which is to be optimistic, which is to look into the future. If we do something wrong in the past, we don't continuously worry about the past. We look how we can do better in the future, how we can improve ourselves, how we can get rid of the mistake and move forward. And this is how, Adam alayhi salam, if you're worried about that, this is the difference that we find. We accept our mistake, we seek forgiveness from our mistake, and then we try our best never to do it again. But we don't stay worrying about the mistake for the rest of our lives. We have to move on quickly. And this is what we learn from this hadith, because the Prophet ﷺ at the end of this hadith, he said, فَقَدْ حَجَّ آدَمُ مُوسَى فَحَجَّ آدَمُ مُوسَى. Adam won the debate. Adam was right to say what he said. So now it shows that we have to move on. We carry on with life. Musa alayhi salam's claim was that you done something wrong, you should be sorry. No, not forever. You do tawbah and you move on in life. You don't forever be wrong for now. Everyone is khata, as we know. The hadith says that every one of us will do sins. And this is that first ayah done. And then watab at the end. So tabbat yada abi lahab, watab. What does this watab mean? Why does it come again? Watab. And this is basically a confirmation. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, first He does the dua that may the hands of Abu Lahab be destroyed, and then watab, and then they are actually destroyed. So this is the key thing we learn. The next ayah, ma aghna anhu maluhu wa ma kasab. And this is translated in different ways, but the key thing is that Allah asks us now that tabbat yada abi lahab, he's been destroyed. Now the question Allah asks is that how much benefit did his wealth and how much benefit did any of the things which he earned give him? Did anything help him at all? And the answer will be no, of course. And then we'll answer the rhetorical question. Or we could translate it in a different way, which is that we can say it as a matter of fact and use the ma as a negative na, that none of his wealth benefited him and nothing which he earned benefited him. And this is something which we learn. And the reason that this one was revealed is there's another narration where the Prophet ﷺ, he was giving advice to the people. And Abu Lahab, he said that in kana yaqulu ibnu akhi haqqan fa inni ufdi nafsi, that if what he's saying is true, I will ransom myself with my wealth and with everything which I earn. So he said, I will free myself. And he said that I will. So now, as a response to that, that despite he had so much wealth, but his wealth did not benefit him. And he made this very bold and audacious claim that if he's right, then I will ransom myself on the day of Qiyamah with my wealth. So this is why Allah brings this. This is the reason for this being revealed. Ma aghna anhu maluhu wa ma kasab. And if you look at the handout on the back, we got in the blue, there's 4 different ways the ma can be translated. And this is very important. The reason this is important is a side point, but the reason we understand that the one word ma, can be translated in 4 different ways. So this shows us that firstly, if we go to a Quran and we pick it up and we try and translate it ourselves, or we try and understand it directly ourselves, it's very easy to make a mistake. Now all 4 of these are legitimate. The one word ma can be translated in 4 different ways legitimately, in the right way. Now if we open the Quran, or we open a translation of the Quran, the person who's translated it, or if we're trying to understand the Arabic directly, we can very easily get it wrong. So this is why it's very important that we take a translation from a very authentic source, or we make sure we keep in touch with scholars if we go directly to the Quran. But that's the reason why that the blue on the back, it gives the 4 meanings of ma and how we can translate it in different ways. It will take very long to explain, and inshallah it's very easy to understand if you just look at the blue stuff. Moving on to the next ayah, sayasla naran dhat lahab. This is the actual main message which is given in the surah. So we know we're talking about Abu Lahab, but the key thing that we're trying to get across is that he is punished. Sayasla nar, he will enter into Jahannam. This is the key thing of Abu Lahab, despite the fact that he had this authority. And again, dhat lahab, because remember Abu Lahab was his name before, just to emphasize, this is very eloquent. Sayasla naran, he will enter a fire, and the description of the fire, dhat lahab. Allah uses Abu Lahab's name to describe the fire of Jahannam, the very same fire of Jahannam. That, as we know, is just a word used to make it a description. So you've got naran, and the way we describe naran is lahab, one of very, very leaping flame. So now the same name of Abu Lahab is used to describe the fire. And this is so eloquent, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, before his name was used for good reasons, Allah uses the same name for bad reasons. And this is something amazing which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does. And now the discussion moves more primarily onto his wife, وَامْرَأَتُهُ. Imra, his wife, and it refers to the wife of Abu Lahab. And now talking about his wife, why was she how come she's given a separate half of the surah? We give half the surah to the wife, half the surah to the husband. How come? Why is she so important? So because she as well was very active in the persecution of the Muslims. She used to do many, many different things, and we find lots of different reasons for why the wife of Abu Lahab was given different punishments. And from them, one is that she used to take thorns and she used to scatter them in the path of the Muslims. So hammalat al-hatab, hatab means sticks. Hammala, somebody who carries them. She used to carry the sticks on her back, and then thorny ones with thorns on them, and at night time she scattered it in the path of the Prophet ﷺ. So he has to walk and his feet will get stuck on the thorns, and it will be very painful. This is one reason. Another reason, and this is the more common reason, most of the Mufassirin accept this reason, which is Hammala, it's a metaphoric, it's not literal. She doesn't actually carry sticks, it's metaphoric. What it means in Arabs, Hammala is somebody who carries things, hatab, which ignites fights between people. And in Arabic we call this namima. When somebody just wants to cause problems in society, all they do is they go around, they make up things about other people, and they just spread this information. So I will say one thing about one brother, and I'll go to another brother and say, oh, this brother said this about you. And then he'll go and tell another brother. And people that do this, they destroy society, which is why the Quran itself, why does the Quran mention something which we think so small? The Quran itself talks about ghiba. It talks about how bad ghiba is, and how bad it is to backbite another Muslim. The reason for that is because Islamically, our society is based upon people being honest with one another. Our society is based on these kind of things. That's why these things are so important. And namima, all of the Mufassirin, if you check any of the Tafseer book, this is obviously Tafseer of Qurtubi, but if you check most of the Mufassirin, here they go on a tangent. And all of them take out 1 or 2 pages from their book, and they speak about the evils of namima, the evils of backbiting, and the evils of making assumptions. And this is something which all of the Mufassirin do. Imam Qurtubi mentions, he goes on a complete tangent, and he just brings so many hadith and the way the Prophet ﷺ spoke about this. The most famous hadith which we know, which is in most of the books of hadith, where the Prophet ﷺ, he himself, he talks about the nammam. He says, La yadkhulul jannata nammam, in the hadith which Imam Muslim brings in his Sahih as well, that somebody who does nammam, he's a nammam, he will not enter Jannah. Somebody who goes and spreads information about other people, randomly just talks about people for no reason, who wants to cause problems. And even the Quran, hammalat al-hatab, Allah describes hammala, somebody who Hatab is the firewood. So somebody who takes things and ignites problems. So now these two people may be friends, but now I go and I take some hamala, I go and say something to him about you, and he then thinks bad of yourself. This is what I've done. So now I've ignited hatred in his heart. And this is why Islam, there's a specific hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that the person who goes and says good to somebody else, if two people have a fight with each other, and I go to one of them and say good things to him about the other person he has a fight with. Now the Prophet ﷺ says in the hadith that لَيْسَ الْكَذَّابِ, this person is not a liar. This person is exempt from lying because he's causing unity within the people. This is how important unity is, and this is how evil ghiba is, and this is how evil namima is. So to say bad things about other people, to presume bad things about other people, and most importantly to then presume something bad and then to go and spread this thing to other people is something which Islam, it just ruins society. It can ruin a family, it can ruin very, very good friendships, it can ruin things. That's why even if we hear it, which is why Islamically, even if somebody comes to me and does ghiba about somebody else, then the person who's listening, he gets the sin as well. So that's why we have to stop everyone. So this is how important it is. It's just like every sin. So if somebody, even if we listen, we have to stop these kind of things, because it ruins the society. It makes hatred. It makes people hate each other. So if everybody's transparent and key up to each other. And the reason I've gone on a tangent is because all the Mufassirin go on a tangent. They all, 3 pages Imam Qurtubi, he dedicates just to talk about the evils of namima. And he brings different hadith. He quotes Qadi Ayad. He quotes different scholars of the past. He brings a hadith from the Prophet ﷺ. And also he talks about Dhul Wajhain, people who are two-faced. There's one face here, one face here. And this, the very, very famous hadith where the Prophet ﷺ says that Dhul Wajhain la yakunu inda Allahi wajihan, that a person who has two faces, he will not come in front of Allah with any kind of face. And that's not very famous, that one. But the more famous one is that min sharri nasi dhul wajhain, that the most evil of people are those people who are dhul wajhain. And this is in Bukhari and Muslim, very, very famous hadith, who comes to one person with one face, another person with another face, and just spreads problems in society. So this is why we try and stay away from this ourselves, and we also try and keep other people away from this. And this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives so much importance to this kind of thing. And they are the main reasons which this verse is revealed. وَامْرَأَتُ حَمَّالَةَ الْحَطَبِ, different meanings which we can take. Hammala also, there's a tafseer, the way it's recited is very, very, there's a lot of debate in the way it's recited as well. Some people say it's حَمَّالَةُ الْحَطَبِ, and we recite as حَمَّالَةَ الْحَطَبِ. However, the majority of the Qurra, majority say حَمَّالَةُ الْحَطَبِ, and we say, however, we read with Hafs, so we generally read حَمَّالَةَ الْحَطَبِ. So this is where we go. So the majority, they'll just translate it slightly differently, and they'll read it slightly differently, and this is where the we go slightly different to the majority. Which is, if we went to Morocco, or if you went to the north of Africa, or even if you went to some parts of Spain, the way people read, they may read according to different imams. So it's very likely if they read Surah Lahab, we may think they're reading it wrong, because we generally read Hammalat al-Hatab, and they read Hammalatul Hatab, and the majority of other scholars, except from Imam Hafs, all read Hammalatul. And the last verse, fi jidiha hablum min masad, and this is again very, very specific verse. Fi jidiha, in her neck, hablum min masad, there'll be a rope which is made out of twisted fiber. And the main hadith narration we find for the last verse is the fact that, again we're talking about Imra, the wife Jamila of Abu Lahab, is she came to the Prophet ﷺ, she was walking around and she saw the Prophet ﷺ giving da'wah, and she said that she took an oath that I will spend the value of, she had a very, very valuable necklace around her neck, and she said that she took an oath, uqsim billah, that I will spend the value of this necklace in the opposition of Deen, Islam, and in the opposition of the Prophet ﷺ. So many scholars quote this narration and say this is why this specific punishment will be for her, because she said she will give her necklace in opposition to Islam. So that's why she will have a punishment within Islam, and that's all mentioned under the last hadith. So obviously there's many lessons we can take. Again, being mukhlis and doing things for the sake of Allah and not for the sake of other people, and so many things that we learn from this. And I make that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives me and all of us the ability, inshallah, to act upon what's been said. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah.